Hello everybody. So what I'm going to do in this video is do a walkthrough of Access Chapter 3, the Greater Project. And before I do that, I wanted to point out something. I feel like some of you may be missing out on using some of your resources for these assignments, but I did want to take a minute to show you some things. So I'm going to back up from this screen for a minute. When you first get into the MyLab IT, you go through D2L, and the first screen that it brings you to when you click on the course materials link should look something like this. And then we go here to launch the courseware, and that's how you get to your assignments. But the step I think a lot of you are missing is clicking here on the Read Now tab. This is the e-textbook, and technically all semester long you are supposed to be reading this chapter that corresponds with the assignment in question. And there's one for every assignment that we've done, for every chapter that we've done all semester. And that's on your course schedule where it says e-text chapter whatever. That's what I'm talking about here. And I think maybe some of you are getting that, but some of you have missed out on that. So what I wanted to do before I jumped into the project is I wanted to go here and see if you scroll through the table of contents. And by the way, when you first get here, it may not necessarily be on the, I don't know exactly what it will show when you first click on it. But when you go to the read, it's going to bring up the table of contents. If it does not for some reason, you can click on this and it should then bring it up. But you'll see that I've scrolled down in the table of contents to Access Chapter 3. And if I click here and just kind of scroll through, you'll see that this is an actual e-textbook, and it walks you through everything you need to know for each assignment, with some figures that show you screenshots of things. You can zoom in on the images if you want to, and then when you get to the bottom of each section, you just page forward, and it will actually go through everything you need to know for every assignment. So if there is something that's giving you trouble, just go back to the ebook and read through, and it'll tell you how to set up what it is. And I know on Access Chapter 3, probably the largest issues are with the calculated fields that you have to create. And that's totally understandable. That's not an easy thing to do. But you do have the resources available to you in order to successfully complete that. So I just wanted to point that out to you. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to go here and I'm going to download my materials. And as always, we've got the instructions and the Greater Project database file. So I'm going to do that one first. And like we've seen in previous videos, I'm going to show in folder. And I want to extend this little area so I can see where my P drive is. There it is. So I'm going to click and drag that into my P drive. And then I'll just go back over here and I'll get my instructions. All right. Once that's done, I'll open up the instructions and then we'll go from here. And like I've shown you in the previous videos as well, I always like to see my instructions bigger. I'm going to do page width. Sometimes I don't always go directly to page width, but more often than not, I probably do. All right. So step number 1 is to start Access and to open the file. So we know we saved it over here in the P drive, and we do have to look for it, but it's there. Okay, and this is chapter 3, so A03 is what it would be. Okay. And just to be on the safe side, I actually had two because I was working on something the other day. Let me just go back. I want to make sure I get the right one so we don't run into any confusion later. I want the one that has my name on it. All right. Now, you should, or you could, see this security warning. So if you do, just click on Enable Content. And you'll say that, yes, we want to make it a trusted document. And over here, you'll see that in your All Access Objects, you're going to see the 3 different tables that are available for this assignment. And so now we can just go ahead and get started. All right, so we're going to start by creating a new query in Design View using all 3 tables. So that's our first step. So we're going to go into Access, and we're going to go to Create, and we want a query design, and we want all 3 tables. So I'm just going to hold down Shift and select the bottom one because the top was already selected, and that'll add all 3. And then I can just close that. All right, add the following fields in the order given. So from the agents table, we're going to add last name. Okay, so here we see the agents table, there's last name. And you have a couple of choices. You can click and drag this down here, or my favorite is just to double click it and it puts it down here. All right, now we've done agents. Now we're going to do from the properties table, date listed, date sold, sale price, selling agent, and listing agent. So that's a lot. Maybe y'all can remember that, but I'm old, so maybe not. So date listed, date sold. We'll go ahead and do those first. So I'll do date listed, date sold, and then we want sale price, and then the selling and listing agents. Okay, so sale price, and I don't really like these scroll things, so usually I try to do this just to bring those down. Not a huge deal, it's just a personal preference. All right, so we got sale price, and now we want selling agent and listing agent. So that's 6 fields so far. And then from the subdivision table, they want the subdivision field. So there it is. All right, so there's all of our fields that are going to be in this query. And by the way, just to explain a little more about queries. So databases contain information, and a query is a tool, and the verb to query actually means to question. So to create a query for a database simply means that you're creating a tool in the database to question the database for particular pieces of information. In this case, it'll make more sense later, but we're pulling information about properties, but we only need certain items of information for the type of material that we want to pull. And I don't know, that doesn't make a lot of sense now, but it will, I promise. All right, so we've got all those. Now we're going to add criteria to the query to ensure that the date sold field is not empty. Hint, you will need to use null, N-U-L-L, as part of the criteria. Okay, now this has been throwing some of you off as well. Now I'm bringing up a little on-screen keyboard. You don't have to have that because you probably have no problems typing, but I do, so I need the on-screen keyboard. All right, so we need to find only properties where the date sold field is not empty. In other words, we don't want to see properties that haven't sold yet. We need to make sure there is a date sold field. So that's what we're going for. So down here in the criteria under date sold, we're going to type just the words is not null. In other words, it's not empty. Okay? So that's what that's about. Now we're going to format the sale price as currency. Well, if you really think about that, that makes sense. We want it to be currency. So sale price, we're going to click on that, and I'm going to just kind of move this over for a moment. And up here, I'm going to click the property sheet option. You can also right click on that. And and then I'll go over here to format, and I'm going to choose currency. That means that this sale price will be currency. Now, in order for that to work properly, you have to have clicked in the column you want to deal with. So if you went over here to date sold and then changed it to currency, that would be a problem. But price is currency, so that makes sense. All right, now here's where things start getting a little complicated, but it's not too scary. And like I mentioned already, you know, when you go into your information, when you go into these projects, you actually can find this information in the chapter. And it's taken a moment to load, but it's got all this in here. Like, how do you do a calculated field? So all these things are in here. It tells you how. Okay, so if for some reason you're not able to follow along here with the video, that should help. Okay, so in order to find out the days on market, then we know that just logically speaking, we have to look at the day it sold and the day it was listed and figure out how many days between the two. So mathematically, we're saying the date sold minus the date listed equals the number of days on market. Okay, so in order to do that, we're going to go here in the first empty field, and I'm going to bring my little keyboard back up so I can type. All right, and I'm actually going to use something called the builder, and that brings this up. Okay, and it's going to be days on market. Have to type in here. Days on market. And it has to have a colon, not a semicolon, but a colon. And then we choose what we want to calculate. Well, here's our database. And if we click this little drop down, we'll see we've got our, tables, our queries. Okay, so I'm actually going to go here into the tables. And we know that the date sold and date listed, that comes from the properties table. So I go there and I say date sold, and I'm double clicking it. And then I say minus, and then I'm going to double click date listed. So properties, the properties table, date sold field, minus the properties table, date listed field is going to equal days on market. Okay, hopefully that's going to make sense. All right, so we'll go ahead and click on OK. And we should be good to go at that point. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Well, no, I'm going to resist the urge because it hasn't told us yet. And I don't want it to give you problems. Okay, then you'll also see in the next part of this instruction is to add a caption of days on market. See, sometimes some of you are missing these secondary instructions that are included in this is all step number 5, but it's really got a lot of steps in it. Okay, so one of the steps, or the final step in step 5, is to add a caption of days on market. So to do that, we're going to do the same thing that we did when we changed the currency. Changed the format to currency. So we're going to make sure we're clicked in there. We're going to go to the property sheet, which is already over here, and we're going to look for caption. Let me just turn that off and bring it back on. Okay, it's barking at me because I forgot to take this little thing out. So I'm just going to take out where it says EXPR with the little markers. Okay, now we should be good to go. And now we can, for our caption, we're going to put days on market. So see, even I still have to troubleshoot. Don't ever feel bad for having to troubleshoot. And it usually is something quite simple like that. I had left the little expression filler in there. Okay, so now we've got days on market as our caption. Now we can move on to step number 6. All right, this calculated field is going to calculate the amount of the listing commission. Okay, so you're going to have a listing agent, a selling agent. They get different commissions in this case. One gets 3.5%, one gets 2.5%. So in order to do that, we're going to go over here and we're going to create a new column. Okay, and this one, we will still use the builder. I like using the builder. Okay, and we're going to call this one listing com. Listing. Let's see if I can make it shorter here. Yes, listing com colon. And we know that, again, this comes from the properties table. Okay, and our commission is not based on the list price because sometimes that changes. In a seller's market, that list price might be under what it ended up selling for. But in a buyer's market, sometimes you can get the price way down. Either way, it frequently changes. So we don't base it on the list price. We base it on the sales price. So we're going to say sales price, and then we're going to say times. And in this case, they say that the listing commission is 3.5%. So we're going to go here, and 3.5% mathematically is going to be 0.035. And here I've got this little EXPR thing again, so I'm going to delete that before it barks at me. And then we'll, know that's okay. All right, and also it says we want to add a caption of listing commission and format the field as currency. So we might as well do that while we're here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, click on OK, and then we go over here to the format. We're going to change that to currency. We're going to go to the caption, and we're going to type in listing commission. Alright, so there we go. Now we have a calculated field that should calculate the listing commission. Oops. There we go. Alright, now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do this for the selling commission at 2.5%. So it's essentially the same process, but just a different percentage and a different name. Okay, so we'll start here. Go to the builder, and we'll say selling com. And again, it's going to come from the property sale price, and it's going to be 2.5%, so 0.025. And I'll take out my little space holder there. I think they literally call them placeholders. All right, and we'll say OK, and it's going to be currency, and it is also going to be captioned selling commission. And in case you're wondering what the difference is, some of you may know this, but some of you may not. The listing commission is what would go to the listing agent. The selling commission is what would go to the agent that actually sold the property, which can be the listing agent if they're operating as both the buyer's and the seller's agent, or it can be just the person who represented the buyer only. So there we go. All right. Now we're going to save the query and switch to datasheet view. So we're going to save the query. And let's see, did it give us a name? It just says save the query. Let's see if we need to give it a specific name. Yes. See, I missed a step. That's why it's important to go back and check all these things. So it is supposed to be called sales report. All right. And then we're going to switch to data sheet view like it says. And now we can see the calculations that we've done. So on this first property, for example, it was listed on 8/25/2012. It sold on 10/17/2012 for a price of $114,000. And it's in the Wood subdivision. It was on the market for 53 days. The listing agent got $3,990 and the selling agent got $2,850 on that sale. So far, our query's working well. Now we're going to create a copy of this sales report query, and we're going to name it Sales Summary by Last Name. Okay, so we're going to create a copy. Okay, and the easiest way to do this is to just click on it over here and click on copy and then to paste, and it's going to give us the opportunity to name it. And like it says here, it wants it to be called Sales Summary by Last Name. So we're going to type that in, and to try to make this as easy as possible, just gonna, well, I'll just type it in. I was checking on the capitalization there. I knew that according to grammar, the word by should be lowercase, but sometimes they want the titles done a little bit differently. So sales summary by last name. Okay. Now we're going to switch to design view in the new query. Okay. So we're going to go to the new query. Make sure it's the right tab here, sales summary by last name, and then we'll click on the design view, and it wants us to remove date listed, selling agent, listing agent, and subdivision. So we'll just kind of go in order. So in this one, we don't want date listed, so I'm going to click on the little, I'm going to hover right there, and it gives me a little black arrow. So I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to go up here to delete column. So date listed is now gone. It wants us to also get rid of the two agents and the subdivision. So we're going to take away selling agent, we're going to take away listing agent, and we're going to take away subdivision. Alright, and that step is done. Now we're going to display the total row in design view, and then group by last name, change the date sold field total row to where, show the sum of sale price, the average of days on market, and the sum for both list and Cellcom. That's a lot of stuff all in one step. Okay, so what we're going to do to make it palatable is we're going to break it down a little at a time. Alright, so since we have all these steps to do, what we need to do is break it down so it's not overwhelming. There's a lot in here, but it's not as complicated as it would seem. So what we're going to do is, as it says, display the total row in design view. So when we go to the design view, which is where we are, it's really simple. We just go up here and click on the totals button, and you'll see that it added a row down here called totals. So easy enough. All right, the next step is to group by last name. Okay, well, they all say group by initially. So last name is already set to group by. If yours is not for some reason, then you would just click in here, change the drop down to group by. So that's what we're going to do. All right. Now the next step is to change the date sold field total to where. So we're going to go to date sold, and in the totals row, we're going to go all the way down to where. In other words, the date sold is not null. So it's only going to display properties where the date sold is not null. In other words, it's not empty. All right. The next is show the sum of sale price. So we're going to go to the sale price, click here, and go to sum. And then we're going to go to the average of days on market. So we'll click here, go to average. And then for the last two, which is the list commission and sale commission, it wants the sum for each of those, which makes sense. Basically what they're calculating here is the total commission generated by these individuals and their days on market stats. Okay, so that's what that is. All right, and then it wants us to change the caption for the sale price field to total sales. So we're going to go here and look for sale price, click in there, and we're going to go over to caption, and I've already typed it in here, so you can type it in, total sales. It's not going to be there, I just did it already. And then we want to change the format of days on market to fixed. So we go to the days on market tab, and then over here under format, if you click in there, it gives you a drop down, and you just choose fixed. And then it wants you to run the query. So we're going to run the query. And on yours, it's possible that some things are cut off, like, you know, that, like maybe the whole last name is not showing, or maybe on something like this one, you can't see the whole column title there. So what it's asking you to do is to adjust column widths as necessary. So the easiest way I've found to do that is to just hover my cursor over the line between the two columns. Just hover so that I get the double-ended arrow like that, and double click, and it automatically fits. So you would just do that for each column. Just double click, and you would do that, you know, until you've made room for all of the different columns. Okay. And when we've done that, then we're ready to adjust the total row on the data sheet view so it shows the sum of total sales. Okay, so the way that we do that, let me make sure, did I miss a step? I don't want to throw you guys off. Run the queries. Okay, so here's where the little confusion is. I even confused myself. And if I confuse myself, I know you guys might be confused too. When you run the query, it changes from design view to data sheet view. So that's what that is. And so when you adjust the total row in data sheet view, you didn't actively like go up here to view and change it, but when you ran the query, it changed it automatically. Okay, so in order to look at the total row in data sheet view, you are going to go up here and click on totals, and it shows it here. And then according to the instruction, what it wants the data sheet view to do under totals is show the sum of total sales. Okay, and what that means is it wants all of these added up, all the total sales. So we click in there, click the drop down box, and go to sum. And then when you click off that, you'll see there, that's the amount of the total sales. So everyone sold a total of that much. All right. And then it wants you to save and close the query. So we're going to save, and then we're going to close it. Let me move my little keyboard out of the way. So whatever tab here is highlighted, that's what you're going to close. So you're going to close the query. And I'm going to go ahead and close that one too. That was our earlier one. Okay. Now we're going to create a copy of this sales summary by last name. Okay. So just like we copied this first one, we're going to click on that one and we're going to copy it and we're going to paste it. And this time, instead of it being sales summary by last name, they want it to be sales summary by subdivision. Let me make sure I'm copying the right one. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to change this to subdivision. And of course, take all this copy of stuff off the beginning. I try to do all these little shortcuts to make it easier. All right, so now we've got sales summary by subdivision. And it wants us to open that new query in Design View. So in order to do that, you just click on it. And actually, I would just say open it and then change it to Design View. Okay. And then replace the last name field with the subdivision field. Okay, so we're going to go here, and the easiest thing to do is to just go up here to subdivision and click there and change it. And it's going to add it. So what we're going to do is click here. We want to take last name out. So there we go. Now we have subdivision. And it wants it to ensure that the total row is still set to group by, and it is, because that's just kind of the default. Okay, so now we have a little bit more to do here. It wants us to sort the query results so the lowest average days on market is first, and the highest average days on market is last. Okay, so in other words, it wants us to do it in ascending order. All right, so we come back over here into Design View and we click on the days on market, and you'll see that we've got a sort by. So we want it to be ascending. And again, just to clarify, that's because the lowest average to the highest average. So lowest to highest, that is ascending. All right, and then we want to limit the results to the top 5 values. And then it gives you a little hint. Look in the Query Setup group of the Design tab. Okay, so what we do is we go up here, and there's the Query Setup group. And then it says Return. And so we're going to choose 5 because we want only the top 5. Okay, and then it's going to say to close all database objects. So let me again move my little keyboards out of the way. So we're going to close, and let's see, make sure it does tell us to save. It doesn't say, but we're going to do it just to be sure. All right, and then at that point, we close the database and exit access. So we're going to close the database by going to File, Close. And then we simply will exit out of access. And now we go back to our assignments. And we're going to upload this assignment. Now remember, we did all the work on the P drive. So we're going to go there, and it was this one. So we click that, and then we click Open, and to upload, and submit. And there we go. We have Access Chapter 3 Grader Project.